Hi, and welcome to SuperKicking It with Kelsi. And this is the XFL special edition of my show. We're going to talk about why you shouldn't be so pessimistic about the relaunch of the XFL in 2020. Also, we're going to talk about the XFL 30 for 30 that was released in 2017. We will also show some old XFL merch.
Oh, we're kicking it. Super kicking it with Kelsi.
Okay guys, we're going to start off by showing some really cool old XFL merch. Here is a XFL football. We also have a mini XFL football. I'm wearing an Orlando Rage XFL team hat. And here is a Orlando Rage shirt. And the back says XFL. Pretty cool. So here's some reasons why people shouldn't be so down about the idea of the XFL. I feel like a lot of people are saying it's destined for failure, it's a stupid idea, but the landscape is really different right now than it was in 2001 when Vince McMahon launched his original XFL. For one, the WWE is not absorbing a whole other company like they did in 2001 with WCW. Now imagine all the chaos that creates backstage, especially when you're doing that at the same time as launching this new huge endeavor such as the XFL. Now this time it won't be an issue. In fact, in the new press conference, Vince McMahon said that there won't be any WWE involvement at all. There will be no crossover between WWE and the new XFL. And I feel like that is a positive change that they're making. I feel like that will probably contribute to the possible success of the XFL by keeping the brands completely separate from each other. Another thing to be excited about is that they're going for a shorter game, but also they have 2 years to plan to create rules to recruit really good players. And the XFL of old was actually really decent football once the year went along and once they decided to concentrate more on the football and less on the crazy outside stuff like the WWE type of stuff that they did. But having said that, I will say some of the things that they did in the old XFL was quite revolutionary. They made quite a few innovations, such as using a sky cam, which is still used in the NFL today. They also had a lot of, sideline interviews with coaches, which is what is done today. Also, they kind of took a peek behind the, quote, curtain and got to know some of the players. The NFL still does that today with stuff such as sound effects as well as Hard Knocks, basically taking you behind the scenes of the NFL, of the players, etc., etc. I feel like these are really cool innovations that the XFL implemented, and it was basically ahead of its time. I feel like Vince and company, including the production company, are so good at doing revolutionary things in terms of production and technology. I'm really looking forward to seeing that. Also, it's a different day and age in terms of media and how media is released. You could do things streaming, which really didn't exist back then. Now streaming is a huge thing. He could have basically a streaming platform and do really well. He could have a TV platform. He said he's open to all possibilities in his press conference. Some things we know: he wants to go for a shorter game, as I said. I do think it's ironic that in the press conference he said, a 3.5 hour game will bore you sometimes, depending on the quality of play. We're going to go for 2 hours. That's an experience I think that people would enjoy seeing, and it doesn't take up too much of their time. I feel like that's quite ironic after, making Raw 3 hours. Sometimes you could say the same thing about Raw, that it's a bore to sit and watch a 3-hour Raw. So it's funny, there we have Vince McMahon saying the same thing about a 3-hour game of football. We'll have to see if he really can make it shorter, how he's going to make the players be allowed to, make it extreme. How is it going to be extreme? Are they going to be allowed to hit harder? There's all this concussion stuff that could get in the way. It's all a wait and see. There's really nothing kind of set in stone yet, but some of the things that he has said, like making it more family friendly, no WWE involvement, and the more time to launch. I feel like all those are positive things where people shouldn't be so down on this idea so quickly. Give it a chance, guys. I think it's going to surprise you. And one last thing I want to mention that I found very interesting. I was listening to some podcasts after the XFL 30 for 30 came out, which was a very interesting documentary. It kind of opened my eyes to some new things that I didn't know about. But the podcast said something that the documentary didn't even touch on. It kind of almost hinted at a conspiracy. There's a point where they talk about this game that was being broadcast, and basically it was a blackout. Like the TV truck lost power, and the backup generator had no gasoline. They found out later that some kind of cable had been unplugged, and someone had forgotten to get extra gas for the backup generator. To me, all of that does seem kind of suspicious, considering WWE and their production have been pros at putting on live television for years and years and years. Or they were partnered with NBC at the time, who also had a very good reputation and, a good record. So to me, on that podcast, I think it was the Sam Roberts podcast, they were hinting at a conspiracy almost, like maybe somebody purposely unplugged it. I don't know. I know that's a little bit of a stretch, but it is quite interesting once you stop and think about it. Really think back. Have you remembered or recalled a huge problem on a Monday Night Raw over the last 25 years that was of that caliber, where it basically was blacked out for a really long time and couldn't get back on the air? I can't recall anything like that ever happening. So it's quite interesting to think about. So I hope you enjoyed this little special edition of my show, and I hope you guys will kind of give the idea of the XFL in 2020 a chance. And I'll be really looking forward to see what they're going to do, and I can't wait to see you guys' thoughts and feelings to why you think it will fail or succeed. Thank you so much for watching. Happy football watching!